Wednesday. It is week 17, or week 18 now, in the 2023 NFL season. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be traveling to Baltimore, Maryland this week to take on the dreaded Ratbirds, the Baltimore Ravens, with the season on the line. We learned today Lamar Jackson will not be playing. He's too scared, man. He's too worried he's going to lose that MVP if he has to go up against this Steelers defense, man. But welcome into the show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. We're going to cover a bunch of stuff today. Of course, season finale on Saturday, playoffs on the line for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be the first and probably what could be 3 live shows for the Pittsburgh Steelers talk crew here this week, because we're going to have today's show, we're going to be having Saturday's watch party, and then if the season comes down to Sunday night football between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins, Coop and I were going to be going live again for a second watch party this weekend to see if the Steelers make the playoffs. But as for today, we got the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to be talking about whether or not I think Mason Rudolph should be the starting quarterback for the black and gold for the 2024 season. There's a report out about what the asking price for Justin Fields could be next offseason if the Steelers wanted to pursue him. Travis Kelce and TJ Watt kind of blasted the Mike Tomlin haters out there. And then also, I'm going to be making the case for Mike Tomlin to be the head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024 and beyond. I'm going to be taking a look at really the last 6 years in detail, from 2018 to 2023. Kind of some mediocre football, right? Only one 10-plus win season during that time frame, and I'm going to kind of break down why I think Mike Tomlin is the right guy to usher in the next era of winning football here in Pittsburgh. And then also, as always, every single week we do a live Q&A mailbag. We're going to have that for you guys here in just a second. Use hashtag Steelers or Super Chat to get your question on today's show and have your voice heard. Mr. Jeffrey Cooperstein, how we doing, my friend?
I'm well, Spare Dog. And yourself?
Are you ready for a very busy week of Steelers coverage this week?
It's going to be electric. Steelers in the playoff race. It starts by winning Saturday.
Yeah, you got to win Saturday.
Step 1 is win Saturday.
Technically, the Steelers could get in if
if
they lose, but it just makes it a lot more easier if the Steelers end up winning here on Saturday. And honestly, they should win on Saturday.
No Lamar Jackson.
No Lamar Jackson. It looks like they're not going to be playing a lot of their starters this weekend. Steelers, of course, are playing everybody. So if the Steelers lose this game against essentially the JV team for the Baltimore Ravens, it's just not going to be good for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I can assume all the Mike Tomlin haters will come out in full force if they're unable to win this weekend. But you know what? That's not going to happen. The Ratbirds are going down. We're going to the playoffs. And here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I see Ray Castor in there saying the weather's going to be bad. And, you know, if it's rainy or if it's snowy, I actually think that the Steelers, that might work to their advantage a little bit, especially if Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren can get going in the run game again, do what they did against Seattle last weekend would be absolutely fantastic. But let's talk a little bit about the playoffs here. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers make the playoffs this year? Yes or no, Coop? Let me know.
Yes, they're going to do it.
I just think that right now the momentum is all on their side. You look at the matchups that the Steelers need, right? Because if they win, they need either the Miami Dolphins to upset the Buffalo Bills, all right? Because it is an upset, right? Because Tua's a little bit banged up. They don't have Jalen Phillips or Bradley Chubb. They're 2 starting safeties, or 2 edge rushers, my bad. But, you know, and then the Tennessee game against Jacksonville, I just don't really trust Tennessee to go ahead and win that football game, but it just feels like something is going to happen this weekend to get the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. I mean, ever since Mason Rudolph has come in, it's just been a super magical run here over these last 2 weeks. You're playing against the backups against the Baltimore Ravens. The NFL is going to make Steelers fans wait as long as humanly possible to get an answer on this. I have a feeling we're going to be going live Sunday night for that Sunday night football game, and it's going to come down to that. And, you know, it's just going to be interesting, man. It really is.
David says yes. Lindsay says yes. Kyle and Ashton also say yes.
I think the confidence in Steelers Nation's high.
Yeah, you need the Dolphins to win over the Bills. All right, or you need the Titans to beat the Jaguars if you win. You just need one of those things. You don't need both, all right?
So Arctic, we'll get to your super chat in just a moment, but we have to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor.
All right, so let's talk about today's sponsor for today's live stream, which is Factor Meals. Get started on your New Year's resolutions with today's sponsor, Factor, which is a ready-to-eat meal delivery service that takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores and the prep work and the cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered straight to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your New Year's resolutions this year. What's even better is that Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep you going no matter what's on your schedule. They actually sent a couple of those meals and those juices and those smoothies to Coop and I. Thanks to Factor for that. They were absolutely delicious, and I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be getting more here in the future. Head on over to factormeals.com/SteelersChat50 and use code SteelersChat50, one word, to get 50% off Factor Meals today. That's code SteelersChat50 at factormeals.com/SteelersChat50 for 50% off today. And we got our first super chat today, which comes from Arctic Adjuster. What's up, Arctic? Says, hater is just a word used by someone with no counter to the arguments. Tomlin is awful at a lot of things. Facts, not hate. So I'll tell you
I don't think those are facts.
So I'll tell you right now the things that he's not awful at. Leadership. He's not awful at defensive game planning. He's not awful at getting past 500 every single year. He's not bad at these things, all right? You listen to the people that are around Mike Tomlin. You listen to the actual people in the NFL, and they talk about this guy as like he's a future Hall of Famer, because he is. So I think from an outsider's perspective, to say that he's awful at a lot of things and calling that facts, unfortunately, I just think that might be a little bit obtuse. I think that might be...
Sorry, you just can't be awful if you have 17 seasons and you don't have any losing seasons.
Keep this in mind right now. Mike Tomlin has more non-losing seasons in a row
than Bill Belichick.
Than any other head coach has ever been in this league with their current team, other than Bill Belichick, and he's about to get fired. All right, keep that in mind. That's 17 straight years. John Harbaugh is the next closest, and he's at 16. And he's had losing seasons there in Baltimore, I believe. And it just seems like Mike Tomlin, I'm going to be going into the Mike Tomlin resume today, kind of laying out my case for why I think that he is the best guy to usher in this next era here. I don't think it's the time to move on. I think that he's somebody that really gets whatever team he's coaching to their absolute ceiling. If they have the talent on the team to be a title contender, they're competing for titles. If they have problems at the offensive coordinator and quarterback position, he gets them into playoff contention. And then, I mean, just because you don't have the talent, they can't really elevate past that mark.
The fact that this year's team is going to have a winning record and last year's team had a winning record with the offensive issues that they've had.
I mean, they haven't had, and this goes back to Big Ben too, because yes, they had that 12-4 season back in 2020, but Big Ben's age was starting to show at that point. And it's like, what do you want Mike Tomlin to do? All right, Big Ben Roethlisberger looked tired at the end of those final seasons. And it's like, do you really expect Mike Tomlin to get those teams to Super Bowls when you got pretty much a geriatric quarterback? And then over these last 2 seasons, he's been dealing with Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada. And he's still getting these teams to over 500. It's absolutely incredible what this guy is able to do to rally a locker room around him and around each other to really be mentally tough throughout this season. And no matter what happens, they end up being competitive year in and year out. And I'm telling you guys right now, when it comes to Mike Tomlin, and I'm going to be talking about this in our later segment, you put the right offensive coordinator and the right quarterback in this system, this team's going to be ready to win Super Bowls again very quickly, because they already have some great pieces, right? They already have TJ Watt. They already have Minkah Fitzpatrick. They already have Cam Hayward and Alex Highsmith and George Pickens and Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris and Jalen Warren and all these guys that they have on this roster right now. If you get the right offensive coordinator and you get the quarterback position right this offseason, Mason Rudolph, a third-string quarterback, is proving this right now. All right, Mason Rudolph is putting up 30-plus point performances, 400-plus yard performances on offense. Just imagine if they get a bona fide, legitimate franchise quarterback in this building. Now, is Mason Rudolph a potential starter in this league? I'll answer that here in about 2 minutes. But when it comes to Mike Tomlin, right now, I don't want to hear anybody say that he's an awful head coach because that's just not true. Is he a perfect head coach? No, but nobody is. Not even Bill Belichick is a perfect head coach. All right, the game management could be a little bit better on Mike Tomlin's end. Absolutely. All right, he's had some very bad losses throughout his career, including this season. All right, I was on this show blasting Mike Tomlin for those 2 losses against the Cardinals and Patriots. I mean, but I look at what he's able to do and how he's able to elevate a roster and get them to their ceiling year in and year out, no matter what's happening. Right? This team went freaking 8-8 with Duck Hodges and a young Mason Rudolph. All right, goodness gracious. Mike Tomlin's a great head coach, in my opinion, and that's where I stand. But what do you guys think? Who do you guys want to be the Steelers' QB1 next year? Do you want it to be Mason Rudolph? Do you want to go trade for Justin Fields? Do you want to sign Russell Wilson? Let me know down there in the comment section. So Ray Caster, okay, so this is, he's in the comment section. He's listing all the bad offensive coordinator hires that Mike Tomlin has had. And listen, this is one of the legitimate criticisms for Mike Tomlin, all right? Because a head coach needs to be able to hire offensive coach talent. And he hasn't done that. And that is the big thing for Mike Tomlin. He needs to get this next offensive coordinator right. All right, absolutely. But I think it's going to be Eric Bieniemy. He's close with Tomlin personally. I like his offensive structure, and he's a change from what we've seen here in Pittsburgh. And after these last 3 kind of failures at offensive coordinator, I definitely think Tomlin is going to be able to get this one right, or at least I hope. If he doesn't get the next one right, my guess is he's going to get fired. All right, so let me know down there in the comments section where you guys want. Everybody just wants to get rid of Mitch Trubisky. That's what people are saying in the chat here, Coop. What do you think? I mean, I think that's a given, right? You got to get rid of Trubisky.
Yeah, Trubisky's gone. I see a lot of Justin Fields as well. Fields is obviously intriguing. We'll see what Chicago decides to do now that they have the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I mean, whatever Chicago decides to do, it's going to be super fascinating because they could trade down, they could keep Fields, they could draft Caleb Williams if they wanted to, and kind of reset that quarterback clock. But to me, it's just I can't wait to see. And as a Steelers fan, I want them to trade Justin Fields somewhere. Maybe even Pittsburgh Steelers. We know Mike Tomlin loves him some Justin Fields. So if he's available and the Bears are trading him, I think the Steelers are going to do whatever it takes to get Justin Fields to be their next quarterback here in Pittsburgh. And maybe try to combine Justin Fields with Eric Bieniemy. And that's kind of like their best case scenario right now, but it's definitely going to be interesting. We're going to be covering it right here on the show all offseason, so make sure you click that subscribe button. Today's Super Chat menu, for a $5 Super Chat, we'll sing the Rudolph, the third-string QB song. So we've already got one of those, so we'll sing that here before we get into our first segment. $10 shots today. We'll take shots for $10. $20, Coop will get a tortilla and slap the living crap out of me. All right, and then $100 total. You get to join Steelers Talk Gold Club. It's a lifelong membership. You get a Gold Club sticker next to your Super Chats for life, and you get a shout-out on every single Steelers Talk live show. So shout-out to Austin, Mo Love, Brian Love, Anthony Fuller, Nathan Glass, James Lombardo, DJ V, Patty Gustafson, Elliptic 6, Alexander Watson, Zach Ecker, Troy Hart, Andrew Longoria, Jesse Johnson, Go Blue Buckeye, Samuel Pugh, Hot Rod 24, Black and Gold Emperor 40, Lord Buddy Bear, Max Payne, Chad Corley, F1 Video Watcher, Steelers Dad, K Drizzy, Andrew Arnold, Jesper Turkelson, Jacob Wizerak, Nightmare, Sporting XD, DJ KJ, Gwendolyn, Latanya, Etheria, Jesper, and Kenny Pickettsburg. Thank you to all of our members of Steelers Talk Gold Club out there. You guys are the absolute best. And then a special shout out to our Black Diamonds. These are the people that have put in $500 or more on a single stream. These are the craziest of the crazy. You could be next if you want. You get your own Super Chat sticker, and you get a customized jersey with a retired number that I wear here on the streams for our watch party. So shout out to Samuel Pugh, F1 Video Watcher, Nathan Glass, Kurgan Cold, Go Blue Buckeye, Elliptic 6, and Gwendolyn. All right, so we're going to get into our first segment here, news and rumors, in about 2 minutes. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now. We got about 161 people watching, just 32 likes. I want to get up to 40 likes here before we get things going.
Elliptic 6, shout out to you. He says, in addition to the benefits of Black Diamond / Gold Club, he says, and maybe even a song.
Yeah, man. I mean,
only for you, Sixer.
Only for you, Sixer. That's right. So $5, we'll sing the Mason Rudolph song. We already got a $5 super chat, so we'll sing that real quick before we get into our first segment, and then we'll get into news and rumors today. Coop, are you ready to get things going?
Let's do it.
Rudolph, the third string QB, finally got a chance to play. And if the Ravens test him, they are going to have to pay. All of the other QBs took the reps and called him names.
Like a loser.
Tomlin never poor Rudolph. Playing any football games. Then with the season on the line, Tomlin came to say,
ho, ho, ho.
Rudolph, with your throws of might, won't you guide my team tonight? Then all the Yinzers loved him. And they shouted out with glee.
Yippee.
Rudolph, the third string QB, you'll lead us to victory. There we go, the first Mason Rudolph song of the day, another $5 super chat, and we'll sing it during the break between the news and rumors segment and the mailbag here. Again, make sure you guys use hashtag Steelers or super chat to get your questions, your comments, your ideas on today's show, this week's mailbag. This is your chance to have your voice heard right here on the channel. Of course, later in today's show, make sure you stick around. I'm going to be making the case for why Mike Tomlin is the right guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers as the head coach moving into the future. And, it's going to be a great show, man. I can't wait to get things going. Damian Roy says he was waving his lighter while we were singing the song. That's great stuff, Damian. Thanks for being a real one. Let's get things going today. Did we get to 40 likes? We did. Okay, perfect. Let's get into this first segment of the day, Steelers News and Rumors, heading into Week 18. Mason Rudolph has played great through the first 2 weeks of starting this season. Could he be the starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024? I'm going to give my take on that here in just a second. Also, ESPN reports what the likely trade compensation would look like for Justin Fields if the Bears decide to trade him this offseason before the 2024 NFL Draft. Is it worth it for the Pittsburgh Steelers? I'll also answer that question. And then also future Hall of Famers Travis Kelce and TJ Watt comment on the latest rumors and the Tomlin haters out there saying that he is a bad NFL head coach. So make sure you stick around for that. Before we get into today's Steelers news and rumors on today's edition of Steelers Talk, do me a favor and click that subscribe button and join the fastest growing community of Yinzers right here on the YouTube platform. We got breaking news coverage for you guys whenever breaking news hits, whenever the Steelers hire their new OC, if they go out and make a big trade for somebody this offseason. We're going to have extensive coverage of free agency and the NFL Draft as well, so make sure you click that subscribe button for that. We also have 2 weekly live shows here until the end of the season. We got the live show every week on Wednesday, and then we got watch parties for every single Steelers regular season game, and hopefully a couple of playoff games as well. And oh yeah, it's all 100% free. So do me a favor, click that subscribe button right now and join our family of Steelers fans today. All right, so let's talk about Mason Rudolph because, I have been super impressed with what Mason Rudolph has been able to do coming in, being a scout team quarterback for pretty much the last 2 seasons and coming in and being a very serviceable NFL starter, putting up 2 30-plus point, 400-plus yard performances for the offense over the last 2 weeks. And now Steelers fans are starting to say, you know what, maybe we should give Mason a chance to be the full-time starter in the 2024 NFL season. So what really needs to happen for me to think that that's a good idea? So first, let's break down the stats a little bit here between Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett. All right, so right now, obviously, Mason's stats are a lot better, all right? You look at the completion percentage, it's multiple points higher, over 100 more yards per game passing than when Pickett was playing this season. Of course, touchdown interception is going to be different because Pickett's played so much more. I think both guys have done a really good job at protecting the football, but I think Mason is doing a better job at getting the offense into the end zone. And the result of that is a 115.3 passer rating, which among NFL quarterbacks with at least 50 pass attempts, that ranks number 1 in the National Football League. Now, granted, he was playing against the Seahawks and Bengals defenses, not the best defenses in the world. But my take on Rudolph here is that although he's definitely the best quarterback on this roster right now, I think that he sticks in the pocket better. I think he has better downfield vision than Kenny Pickett at this point in their respective careers. And it should definitely be Rudolph's job here until the end of the season, all right? Even if the Steelers end up making the playoffs, I think you stick with Rudolph for as long as you can. And the only reason why you would go back to Pickett is if Rudolph just straight up stinks in the first half of this week's Ravens game, and you got to make a change. But I also think that there are probably better options to be the Steelers' starting quarterback heading into the 2024 offseason. And, there's still some things that I need to see from Mason before I really think that I can say that you can put him into a role where he's going to be starting in 2024. First thing I need to see is another great performance against the Ravens in Week 18. They're going to be playing their backups. There's no reason why Mason can't light it up once again this week. Also, I think the Steelers need to make the playoffs, all right? Because if they don't make the playoffs, even if they win this week, you got 3 good performances against 3 bad defenses, essentially. Because remember, the Ravens, usually a good defense, not so good this week with their backups playing. But then I also think you have to have a strong performance against a legitimate playoff caliber defense once you get into the playoffs. And if he can do all 3 of these things, then I might be willing to entertain the possibility of Rudolph coming in and maybe competing for the starting job in 2024. But there are other quarterback options out there that I'd probably rather have than Mason Rudolph right now. I would probably rather trade for Justin Fields just because of that high upside factor that's involved with him. Maybe don't want to trade too much for him, but we'll go over a little bit of that trade compensation later in today's show. Jacoby Brissett, I also think, would probably really do well in this offense, especially if they end up hiring Eric Bieniemy, who I think Mike Tomlin will hire as the next offensive coordinator of this football team. Baker Mayfield, if he wants to leave Tampa Bay and come to Pittsburgh, I think would be a better option than Mason Rudolph at this point. And then Russell Wilson, I think, was somebody that could absolutely still be a good starter in this league. I think that he has a nice touchdown to interception ratio this year. I think he's played a lot better in Denver over the second half of the season than people give him credit for. And I do think Russell Wilson, at least right now, I do think Wilson is the superior quarterback to Mason Rudolph. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Should the Steelers re-sign Mason Rudolph this offseason to be their starter for 2024? At least give him a chance to compete for the job. Type yes or type no. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. And now I want to tell you guys a little bit about our sponsor today at Factor Meals. Get started on your New Year's resolutions with today's sponsor, Factor, which is a ready-to-eat meal delivery service that takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores and the prep work and the cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered straight to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your New Year's resolutions. Stress less over meal times with Factor's no prep, no meal mess or meals to free up time otherwise spent cooking, chopping, cleanup. We know how much we ate doing those dishes, how much time it can take to cook yourself a decent meal. With Factor, it's super easy. It takes super fast to cook it. It's just 2 minutes in the microwave and you're done. Head on over to factormeals.com/SteelersChat50 and use code SteelersChat50, one word, to get 50% off Factor Meals today. That's code SteelersChat50 at factormeals.com/SteelersChat50, one word, to get 50% off today. So now let's shift to one of those quarterbacks that I had on my list that I'd rather have over Mason Rudolph at this point, which is Justin Fields. And Jeremy Fowler from ESPN reports that the likely asking price if the Chicago Bears decide to trade him this offseason will be a second or third round pick. Now, personally, I think it's definitely going to be closer to a round 2 pick than a round 3 pick at this point, especially with the way Fields is playing down the stretch of this season. The Bears are starting to win football games. They've taken themselves, their defense is playing a lot better. DJ Moore's playing really well with Fields throwing him the football. And you know what? If the Bears called me up here, right? If Ryan Poles calls me up and I'm Omar Khan and says, you know what? We'll give you Justin Fields in exchange for a second-round pick and maybe like a future 4th or something like that, I am taking that deal in a heartbeat. Justin Fields, I know that he's a little bit risky, guys, but in order to make money, you have to spend a little bit of money. And it's the same thing goes with risk in the National Football League, right? If you want to hit the grand slam home run, you're going to have to take on a little bit of risk here. And I think Justin Fields has the skill set here, not only as a passer, but also as a dynamic rusher that could immediately put the Pittsburgh Steelers from a team fighting for a playoff spot to one of the top title contenders for years to come. Now, if he doesn't work out, obviously, that would be huge for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It would probably cost Mike Tomlin his job. TJ Watt might have to get traded. They'd have to completely blow it up if Justin Fields does not work out. But please tell me another option that the Steelers can afford to go out and get that could legitimately be a superstar as early as next year. His rushing stats this year are absolutely fantastic. 630 yards for 52.5 rushing yards per game. He has 4 rushing touchdowns, and he has added 8.8 points above replacement to his total here in 2023. And then you look at the 2023 stats to this point, and I really do think that Justin Fields has the passing capabilities to be a true superstar in this league, not only as a rusher, but also as a passer. And I think he's really shown that down the home stretch here of the 2023 season. Now Justin Fields and Kenny Pickett have played the exact same amount of games, and Justin Fields has 13 more touchdowns than Pickett this year. Now he has thrown more interceptions, but it hasn't been terrible. He has more than twice the amount of touchdowns as he has interceptions, and the quarterback rating is higher for Justin Fields. And I think because you take into account the rushing ability of Justin Fields in a potential offense like Eric Bieniemy's or someone else that Mike Tomlin would bring in, I think Justin Fields is the type of talent that could be the guy here in Pittsburgh for the next decade and could put us in title contention for the foreseeable future. Now, I definitely think that this is a possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers because I know Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, really likes him some Justin Fields. And if he's available, if Chicago goes for like a Caleb Williams, #1 overall, and makes Justin Fields available via trade, I think Mike Tomlin is going to be pushing Omar Khan to do whatever it takes to bring him to Pittsburgh to become the next quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He went to this guy's pro day, and he wasn't really looking at any of the other players, right? He went to Justin Fields' pro day knowing that Big Ben Roethlisberger was going to be his quarterback in 2021, just to see Justin Fields and his talent and what he brings to the table. He loves Justin Fields. He loves his mentality. He loves his skill set. And if he's made available this offseason, I think Tomlin will pound the table to get him in the building. Now, was it going to cost to get him? I think it's probably going to take a second rounder this upcoming season along with a future 4th round pick, maybe even a future 3rd. I think that Justin Fields is going to be a very hot commodity if he's made available. I think Atlanta is going to be trying to get him. I think Las Vegas could be wanting to get him. There's going to be a bidding war for Justin Fields if he's made available, especially with the way that he's played over the last few weeks there in Chicago. So I think the Steelers are going to try to do whatever it takes. This is what I think it probably will cost to go out and get the Bears signal caller. Now, if you're Omar Khan, are you taking this deal? Let me know down there in the comment section. Would you accept this trade? Type A if you're going to accept it, or type D if you're going to decline it. For me, I am spamming that A down there in the comment section. Justin Fields, I think, is the type of swing that the Steelers need to make in order to get back into title contention by next season. So before we go, I want to address some of the things that some future Hall of Fame players in the National Football League are saying about Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin. Because there's a lot of Steelers fans and there's a lot of pundits in the media that have been kind of questioning Mike Tomlin and his ability to lead an NFL football team, despite having more non-losing seasons in a row, that's 17, than any other NFL head coach has with their current team right now, other than Bill Belichick, and he's about to get fired. Travis Kelce responded to some of this criticism from Mike Tomlin on his podcast with his brother Jason Kelce, and this is what he had to say. The media are so dumb. Why do we even do media? They're just a bunch of jackasses. They're just out there talking nonsense. One of the best coaches the NFL has ever seen, talking about Tomlin, about to possibly get his 17th consecutive non-losing season. Jesus Christ. Now, not only did he possibly get it, he actually did it. And here's actually the thing, Travis. It's not just the media. This fire was actually stoked by many Steelers fans out there that would rather go with another option than Mike Tomlin at this point. They want to see a change. And although I get some of the criticisms of Mike Tomlin, he hasn't hired a good offensive coordinator in a long time, right? Probably since Bruce Arians or Todd Haley, if you liked him as well. But he played a big role in getting Kenny Pickett in here, which wasn't good either. But how about we listen to some of the players that are in the locker room right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers, namely a future Hall of Famer, one of the best defensive players of all time, in my opinion, and T.J. Watt, who had this to say about his head coach. The reason why we're winning right now is Mike Tomlin. I've said this my whole career here. Never too high, never too low, always consistent. The team meetings are incredible. Everybody, I wish they had a chance to sit in those team meetings. And I think it's just him giving a great message to us and running with it. And guys having true belief in this locker room and the guys in it. There's been a lot of outside noise, but at the end of the day, the guys have been working their tails off and trusting in each other, and it doesn't matter how depleted we are. We understand that's happening all over the league, but if we want to win games, it's going to take the guys in this building. And with all the people on the outside here that aren't in an NFL locker room, have never been in an NFL locker room, myself included here, saying stuff like, oh, Mike Tomlin sucks. He's awful. He's a terrible head coach, and he needs to be replaced. I mean, how about we listen to the players here? How about we listen to future Hall of Fame players like T.J. Watt, who's been in that locker room with Mike Tomlin his entire career? How about we listen to guys like Travis Kelce, who knows what great coaching looks like because he's been with Andy Reid for all these years. These guys understand what great coaching looks like, Hall of Fame level coaching looks like, and Mike Tomlin brings that to the Pittsburgh Steelers year in and year out. And I'm telling you guys right now, I've been saying it for weeks. You get Tomlin the right offensive coordinator to pair with, along with the right quarterback, and I think he's going to have this team right back to winning championships yet again. Now, let me know down there in the comment section. What say you? Is Mike Tomlin a top 5 head coach in the National Football League right now? Type yes or no for me down there in the comment section. Let me know how you're feeling about the Steelers head man. That'll be it for today's show, guys. Really do appreciate all of your support. Make sure you click that subscribe button again, because not only are we in a sub-battle this week with our sister company, Ravens Rundown, and we cannot lose to those guys, but we're also going to be having great coverage throughout Week 18 and hopefully throughout the playoffs for your Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, first cut done, Mr. Coop.
Well done.
So would you say Tomlin is a top 5 head coach in the league right now?
I would say I don't think top 5.
I'm willing to go top 5.
I would have to look at a list of coaches, actually. Off the top of my head, he's a damn good coach. I would definitely put him top 10, but I'd have to look at a list to see exactly if I'd put him in top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I look at what I want. I look at what's important for an NFL head coach. Are you a leader of men? Nobody in the league is better at that than Mike Tomlin. No matter what's going on, no matter what adversity is hitting this team, somehow, some way, his teams never give up on him and on each other. And that's a truly special quality that he has that very few coaches are able to have. And if you get rid of him, all right, he's going to bring that quality to another team, and then you're going to have a really hard time finding that quality in any other head coach, because it is a rare quality what he brings in terms of a leadership standpoint. Also, he's also, I think, still an elite defensive mind on the defensive side of the football. I think that he has consistently delivered great defensive products with different personnel throughout his entire time here in Pittsburgh. I mean, he's done it with a bunch of different waves of guys as well, from the Troy Polamalu era, to today's era with T.J. Watt, right? With Cam Hayward throughout his time, right? It doesn't matter what personnel he has. This defense usually tends to be at least above average, right? If not elite. So I still think Tomlin, he handles his side of the football extremely well, and then he's an elite leader of men. And what he does, I think, is that he gets every team to their ceiling. If there's the talent and the play calling, to make that team a potential title contender, that's right where they are, right? We saw that with the Killer Bee era. We saw that with the Super Bowl era there here in Pittsburgh, his first couple of years here. And he's also able to get a team to their ceiling when it's not going as well. We saw that with the Duck Hodges year in 2019. We saw that with the Kenny Pickett years here over the last 2 years, getting over 500 in those 2 years somehow with one of the worst offenses in the league, right? So I think Mike Tomlin is able to elevate rosters. I think he's able to get a team to their ceiling. And I think because of that, you give him the right head coach or you give him the right OC to call his offense, and you get him the right quarterback to execute that offense, I think this team's going to be right back to winning Super Bowls again, and I have all the confidence in the world in Mike Tomlin.
Look, Tomlin's a great coach, and that's been proven over the last 17 seasons. Spare Dog, get some shout-outs real quick. I just got to do something.
Around. If you stuck around during that freezing there, make sure you type me down there in the chat. We got 86 people here right now. We got 81 likes. Isaac Flam said he was here. Thanks for being a real one. Okay, so we pretty much had to restart the comment section here. So it's down right now. Even if you put a question in earlier, resubmit it right now in the live chat. Use hashtag Steelers or Super Chat right now to get your question in. Titus Kitchen says, I thought it was my phone. No, it was our bad here at chat. It was our fault. But we're back here. We're going to get into this mailbag, but we got to replenish the mailbag here. So make sure you use hashtag Steelers. Get down there in the chat. Get your questions in, and we'll answer your questions on the mailbag. Coop, should we make the mailbag the third segment today? Because we need to start over here, or what?
Let's give it a couple minutes.
All right, so Coop says we want to get a couple minutes here. So make sure you guys use hashtag Steelers or Super Chat. If you guys got a question, if you've got a comment, if you have a trade idea, if you have a draft idea, if you have a mock draft you want to share with me, make sure you get it going. Again, because our stream froze a little bit here, we need people to resubmit their questions. So if you spare and you haven't resubmitted it, then it won't count. So make sure you guys use hashtag Steelers or Super Chat to get your questions on today's show. We're going to give it a couple of minutes here to get everybody's questions back in there. So if you have something you want to get on the show. Coop says it's incredible what's going on right now. DJ KJ, I like this question, man. Says, what are the odds we trade for Joe Flacco? Well, first of all, you could get Flacco in free agency next year. He's a free agent. Is that really the best idea for the Steelers? I don't know. It seems like Joe Flacco just exists to ruin the lives of Steelers fans, right? He was an all-time great Baltimore Ravens quarterback in that franchise's history. Of course, won a Super Bowl with them, the whole 9 yards. Then he goes to the New York Jets. And last year, we needed him to just score 10 points. That's it, 10 points against the freaking Miami Dolphins, and the Steelers would have made the playoffs. But no, he scored 6 points, and we lost.
Hot Rod, you did send in a $5 Super Chat. We unfortunately cannot show it because we lost internet. But you did say, what's up, Coop and Sperry? Wanted to update. Grandpa is back home and safe. Thanks for everyone keeping him in your prayers. Go Steelers. That's awesome.
That's great news, Hot Rod. We gave you a shout out on yesterday's preview. If you didn't see it, we were sending our thoughts and prayers to you yesterday. It's great. It's great news that your grandpa's okay and that he's back home. So that's fantastic news.
He also sent in a 5. So should we do the song, or do you want to wait until the end?
Yeah, let's do the song. It'll give people a little bit extra time to get your questions in. Again, if you put a question in earlier, our stream froze, so unfortunately we can't see those questions anymore. So make sure you resubmit them now using hashtag Steelers or Super Chat to skip the line and guarantee your question makes it on the show. Because the only way to guarantee it is if you Super Chat, all right? So we're going to sing the Mason Rudolph song here for Hot Rod for sending that $5 Super Chat. Are you ready, Coop? Rudolph, the third string QB. Finally got a chance to play. And if the Ravens test him, they are gonna have to pay. All of the other QBs took the reps and called him names.
Like a loser.
Tomlin never let poor Rudolph play in any football games. Then with the season on the line, Tomlin came to say, Rudolph, with your throws of might, won't you guide my team tonight? Then all the Yinzers loved him, and they shouted out with glee,
Yeah, big.
Rudolph, the third string QB, you'll lead us to victory. Let's go. Hot Rod 24 with a $5 super chat. Coop, we got enough questions to get into this mailbag? All right, so apologies for this little bit of freezing there. We got it all figured out, though. Thank you so much for all of your support. By the way, we're 8 likes away from 100 likes already on today's stream. So if you want to click that thumbs up icon, I'd greatly appreciate it. But without further ado, let's get into this week's Steelers Talk live mailbag coming at you right now. It is week 18 in the 2023 NFL season, and today I am going to be answering your questions on the black and gold. Welcome into Steelers Talk and the weekly mailbag here, the Q&A section of this week's content where I break down all of your questions, your comments, your ideas. This is your chance to get your voice heard on the show. And if you are watching this and it's not the live show, that means you missed your chance to get on this week's mailbag, but you can make next week's mailbag by clicking that subscribe button and joining us for our Steelers Talk live shows Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time to get your voice here on Steelers Talk. Make sure you click that subscribe button right now. And with that, I'll pause and open it up for questions. And we start with DJ KJ with a spicy one here, Gold Club member, by the way. It says, what are the odds we trade for Joe Flacco? So here's the thing. Joe Flacco is a free agent next year. So if the Steelers want to go get him, they can. But he's going to be like, 39 next year? I mean, this guy's a dinosaur. And are the Steelers really looking to add a 39-year-old quarterback that's just had a really hot stretch with the Cleveland Browns, right? Is it really repeatable with the Pittsburgh Steelers next year? Now, maybe it is. I don't know. And maybe Mike Tomlin is in that mode right now where we're going to get the best possible quarterback in here no matter what their age is. And maybe Joe Flacco is that answer. But personally, I think the Steelers are going to go with something or someone a little bit younger than Joe Flacco. And honestly, I'm not even sure if the former Raven and now Brown quarterback this offseason is going to want to come play for the black and gold. Then we got one from Ethan Cooper here. He says, I hear A.J. Brown is unhappy with the Eagles right now. Could the Steelers be interested in a trade? Now, this is definitely interesting to me. Of course, the Steelers and Omar Khan, their GM, have massive ties to the Philadelphia Eagles organization. And if A.J. Brown, if this goes to its full conclusion here and says, I want to be traded this offseason, then who's going to be the first team that Howie Roseman calls? It's probably going to be Omar Khan and the Pittsburgh Steelers to kind of gauge their interest. Now, the Steelers have Deontay Johnson. They have George Pickens already, right? So does it really make sense to add that kind of huge contract like A.J. Brown? Probably not with all three of them. I could see a scenario here where the Steelers might trade the Eagles a second-round pick and Deontay Johnson in exchange for A.J. Brown. I don't know if the Eagles would be interested in something like that. I don't know if somebody could come up with a better offer, but I think that's probably what the Steelers would want to do. A second-round pick and Deontay Johnson in exchange for A.J. Brown. Now, let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned comment. Would you trade a first-round pick in exchange for A.J. Brown? Type yes or no for me down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. For me, I'm not giving up a first-round pick for A.J. Brown. I'd try to do something where it's like Deontay Johnson in a second-rounder. But, wide receiver, in my opinion, is definitely not the biggest need on the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, so I'm not going to sell the farm for even a guy like A.J. Brown at this point. Then we got one from Dominic here. He says, I think the Steelers should draft Wiggins, cornerback from Clemson, because he's just a game changer. And I love Wiggins' game, man. He's a little bit on the slender side. He's a little bit skinny, not the best in run coverage. And, he might get bullied around a little bit with some of the more physical receivers in the league. But when it comes to coverage, man, he's got really great coverage ability. He sticks to receivers. He's got great recovery speed. He's got good ball skills as well. Really like what I see from Nate Wiggins on film. Of course, I'm just diving into some of the top prospects at this point into the process, but Nate Wiggins is one of those guys where I've watched a couple of games of already, and I really, really like what I see. Then we got one from CMO NFL GT, and he says Steelers should trade for Kyler. Unfortunately, the Steelers do not have enough cap space to go get Kyler Murray. His cap hit next year is astronomical if he is traded for whoever trades for him. So, I mean, the Steelers would need to pay him upwards of $40 million against the cap next year. And as we sit right now, the Steelers have negative $6 million for the 2024 cap. So, I mean, obviously you can restructure, you can cut players, you can kind of make room elsewhere, but $40 million worth, I mean, even if you're able to pull that off, that financial miracle, you're not going to have a whole lot to kind of bolster the rest of this roster. So really don't think Kyler Murray is a legitimate possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though he is a big-time talent. Now, before we get into the rest of this week's questions, I want to have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. If you're looking for a way to spice up your game days this NFL season and throughout the NFL playoffs, which are right around the corner here, get started with Prize Picks, which is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. You might be asking yourselves, Jack, how does this work? Well, here's how you play. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll go for more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can even win up to 25 times your money on any entry. So let's take a look at my entry for this weekend's game against the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to take the more on receiving yards for George Pickens, and then there's actually this new feature that they have on Prize Picks. It's called Demons and Goblins, where if you hit the Demons, it's a lower chance that you're going to get it, but higher payouts, and then the Goblins are higher chance risks there, but you get lower payouts. So this is an example of 2 demons right here. So I'm playing it dangerously this week, taking the more on receiving touchdowns for Deontay Johnson and the more on touchdowns for Najee Harris as well. You can check it out now and get your picks in before the Steelers play the Ravens on Saturday afternoon by going to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. With Prize Picks, it takes less than 60 seconds to make your picks. So get started right now. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. So one from NV75 here says, Michael Penix to the Steelers in 2024. This is definitely an interesting one to me because, of course, Michael Penix, I mean, huge national profile now after that big-time performance against the Texas Longhorns, Texas Longhorns, unfortunately, and he absolutely lit it up, man. He was absolutely fantastic. And listen, he's got great arm talent. Strong arm, maybe the best deep ball out of anybody in this class, and that's saying something because there's some pretty darn good deep balls here in this year's draft class with Caleb Williams and Drake May and the like. But Michael Penix does have some injury concerns. He's been injured multiple times in that knee. I think that the medical checks will be big for him because of those medical issues. And then also the mental processing. For a 6-year college player, I would like the mental processing to be a little bit better than what I've seen on film so far. I'm not done with my evaluation of him, so maybe in the games I haven't watched yet, it starts getting a little bit better as the season goes on. But to this point, I've been a little bit underwhelmed with his mental processing, but the arm talent is undeniable, but also the medical check is going to be big for him this offseason, and because of that, I have him ranked as my number 4 quarterback in this year's draft class. Now, pick a quarterback for me down there in the comment section. Out of these 4 options, you can only pick one of these 4. Which one are you taking to be the next starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024? Type MR for Mason Rudolph, MP for Michael Penix Jr., JF for Justin Fields, or RW for Russell Wilson. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. So we got one from Isaac Flam. Flam says, trade for Patrick Queen. He's a free agent this offseason, so you could actually go get him if you want to go get him. Now, Quan Alexander's a free agent this year. Quan Alexander is not, so you still, or not Quan, Cole Holcomb is still going to be on the roster next year. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do because Cole Holcomb and Landon Roberts, that's a pretty decent duo right there. But Patrick Queen, super, super athletic, really good inside linebacker. And it's going to be interesting to see if the Steelers really want to spend resources at that position because it is a little bit of a lower value position. But also I think that because the Ravens decided not to compensate him, he might be looking to go to a team in the AFC North, and he could be a Pittsburgh Steeler. He'd be a really nice addition for the right price. Then we got one from Byron Davidson here. It says, Bill Belichick is offensive coordinator. What's your opinion? Bill Belichick is a defensive coach, so no. Bill Belichick, not offensive coordinator. He's going to be a head coach somewhere. He's definitely not going to be a coordinator anywhere. So there's really two problems there. A, he's not going to be a coordinator anywhere. He's going to be a head coach if he's hired anywhere. And then also he's a defensive-minded guy, not an offensive guy. So really don't think Bill Belichick is an option for OC here in Pittsburgh. So make sure you guys like today's video. Click that thumbs up icon. If you are a Steelers Talk Real one, you watch our videos, you appreciate the in-depth coverage that we have here. We work our tails off to give you guys the best damn Steelers coverage here on the YouTube platform, 100% free. So if you appreciate that effort, we would appreciate a thumbs up icon from you right now. Then we got one from Limesy, I like that name, by the way. It says, I think we need good wide receivers, not quarterback. So I think we need both. I mean, am I being too greedy saying we need a good quarterback and good wide receivers? I think that wide receiver, I think it's working in tandem, right? You look at Patrick Mahomes this year in Kansas City, all-time great quarterback, arguably the most talented quarterback talent we have ever seen in this league. With bad wide receivers, he is limited because he doesn't have the guys to throw to. Right? It's a two-way relationship here, and you got to have both. You got to have a quarterback that's able to make big plays, make big throws, but you also need a wide receiver core that can get open. You need a wide receiver core that can make big plays down the field and in the open field. So I really don't think it's a matter of choosing between one or the other. I want good wide receivers, and I want good quarterback here in Pittsburgh. And then we got one from Chad ABC, and he says, if someone offered you a first-round pick in exchange for Mike Tomlin this offseason, would you take it? Probably not. If someone like Washington offered me the number 2 overall pick in a completely unrealistic hypothetical there, maybe I'd take the number 2 overall pick so I could take Drake May or Caleb Williams, right? Maybe, all right? But I look at Mike Tomlin as a coach that I really believe in. I think he gets this team to the ceiling for what that team is able to do every single year, right? If the quarterback plays bad and the offensive coordinator is terrible, right, he still gets this team to at least 500, and they're at least competitive, right? When most head coaches in this league with that kind of circumstance, bad quarterback, bad offensive coordinator, would simply crumble, right? Mike Tomlin hasn't done that. I think that shows that he's a really, really good head coach, and I think if the Steelers just put together the right combination here of offensive coordinator and quarterback to pair with Mike Tomlin's leadership ability and defensive prowess as a coach, I think this team is going to be right back to winning Super Bowls once again here in the Steel City. Now, what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Would you trade a first-round pick or trade Mike Tomlin in exchange for a first-round pick? Type T if you would make that trade, or type T if you're going to pass and keep Coach T here in Pittsburgh. That'll be it for this week's mailbag, man. I really do appreciate all of the people that submitted questions this week. If you didn't get the chance to put your question on this week's mailbag, make sure you click that subscribe button. Join us for our Steelers Talk live show next Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, so you can have your voice heard right here on Steelers Talk. All right, $2 Super Chat. What's up, Dominic? Says, George Pickens a problem now that a QB wants to throw to him?
He means a problem in a good way.
Oh, yeah.
He is an absolute beast. I mean, the last couple of games, didn't you say he's averaging the most yards per reception in the NFL the last 2 weeks?
Over the last 2 weeks, he's averaging like over 25 yards per completion or something like that. It's absolutely unbelievable what George Pickens has been able to do. And, it's incredible that 2 weeks ago we were right here on Steelers Talk Live, Coop, and people were like, we need to trade this guy in the offseason. This guy needs to go. And now after these 2 performances that he's had,
there's a good turnaround.
There's no way that they're trading him. All right, and you realize something here, Coop. Once George Pickens was actually getting the football, the antics stopped. He started blocking for Jaylen Warren. He made a great block for Jaylen Warren last week that led to his touchdown. Right?
Receivers are divas, man. You get them the ball, and they'll be involved. You don't get them the ball,
but here's the
they're
thing, man.
complain.
Here's the thing. Receivers know that their production and all this different stuff is super dependent on play calling and quarterback play. And George Pickens knows he has the talent to be one of the best, if not the most productive receiver in this league, if they just get him the fucking football down the field. And that's what Mason Rudolph is doing. He's sticking in the pocket. He's letting routes develop for George. He is targeting him intentionally down the field, and you're seeing the result. He's been the best receiver in football the last 2 weeks, bar none. All right, so he's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for your $2 super chat there, Dominic. You are a real one. Today's super chat menu, $5 super chats. We're singing the Rudolph, the third-string QB song. $10 super chats. We're taking shots here on the show. $20 Tortilla Slaps. And then $100 total gets you in Steelers Talk Gold Club. So we still got one more segment to go here.
Uno mas.
One more segment. And, I think it is about time. I actually put a Twitter thread or an X thread, whatever you guys want to call it, on X last week, where I kind of broke down the last 6 years of mediocre or quote-unquote mediocre football from the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? That stretch where we don't have any playoff wins. We only have one double-digit win season in that time, at least so far. We might get to double digits this year. But kind of breaking down those years and why I think that Mike Tomlin is still the right guy to usher this team into the next era of football here in Pittsburgh, despite those relative struggles over the last 6 years. I still think Mike Tomlin's an excellent head coach. I'm going to be breaking down the reasons why here in about 2 minutes. We also got a $2 super chat here from DJ KJ. What's up, DJ KJ? Says, what former Steelers players could come back?
Antonio Brown.
No, not Antonio Brown. I mean, I don't know.
Charlie Batch.
I honestly don't even know, fully, we
don't know who's going to be available.
We don't know who's going to be available. We don't know who's going to be re-signed. We don't know who's going to be available via trade. All these different things. Really, nobody comes to mind that the Steelers would really want. Is Juju a free agent again this year?
He probably is.
I don't know if I'd really want Juju. He's Tomlin's type of guy as a slot receiver. Bigger guy, can block. It wouldn't shock me if they brought Juju back. But that's really the only one that really comes to my mind right now. I know Cam Sutton.
Josh Dobbs.
Maybe as a backup to Mason Rudolph. But no, I don't think Joshua
Lee Brooks
Dobbs
says Duck
either.
Hodges.
Duck Hodges has been a fucking real estate agent for the last 5 years.
Careful.
No.
Remember what we talked about earlier today?
Coop, I got it, all right?
Careful.
I've got it, homie. All right. So let's get into this final segment here. I want to talk about Mike Tomlin because I believe that he's a really good head coach. I know that not everybody's going to agree with me on that, and that's okay, right? Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm not somebody that goes on Twitter and is like, oh, if you don't like Mike Tomlin, you're not a fan of this team, right? I'm not one of those guys, right? So if you don't like Mike Tomlin, you want him to get fired, that's your opinion, all right? I completely understand that take. But for me personally, I think Mike Tomlin should remain the head coach here in Pittsburgh for at least another year. And I still think with the way the team is constructed and how I think they're so close to getting back to title contention. For the love of God, they have a chance to get to 10-7 with one of the worst defenses in Pittsburgh Steelers history this year. All right, that is an incredible accomplishment. The adjustments that Tomlin has had to make this year, finally going to Rudolph, right, after Mitch Trubisky was completely crapping the bed, right? Then you go to all the defensive adjustments they've had to make, bringing guys in, getting them ready with guys like Eric Rowe and Miles Jack doing a fantastic job, right? Mike Tomlin, that's coaching, that's culture. I love what he's done this year. Then we got Todd Hastings here with a $2 super chat. Says, great teams have great lines. When will they fix it? So defensive line is great.
The defensive line's really good. With Cam Hayward, you have Watt,
T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Keanu Benson, Larry Ogunjobi, still a good player. Defensive line's not the problem.
The offensive line.
And to their credit, the offensive line balled out last week. All right? You don't get over 220 yards of rushing.
True that.
Like they did last week without that. All right? You just don't. And there's a reason why Najee Harris completely praised that offensive line last week because they did ball out. So we're ready to get things going here. 168 people watching, 111 likes. Tell you what, if we get to 120 likes by the time we get out of this next segment, I'll take a shot. So if you have not already, click that thumbs up icon. I'll do a shot for if we get 9 more likes. All right, so I appreciate everybody's support out there. Let's get into Mike Tomlin's resume right here on Steelers Talk. Welcome into Steelers Talk, and on today's show, I'm going to be analyzing why I believe Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin is the right man for the job here in Pittsburgh as the head coach for at least the next couple of seasons, and why I believe that if you give him the right offensive coordinator and the right quarterback this offseason or in the future here in general, I think this team could absolutely win Super Bowls once again with Mike Tomlin at the helm. Before I get into Tomlin's resume today and we have this discussion, make sure you guys get in the comment section right now and answer this question for me. Is Mike Tomlin an elite NFL head coach? Give me a yes, give me a no. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. You guys are going to see throughout this video why I would be answering yes to this question, but also I completely understand if you answer no. So let's start with the accomplishments, all right? Let's start with the good things about Mike Tomlin's career as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. Of course, he won the Super Bowl back in 2008, 2009, Super Bowl 43. Of course, with the Big Ben Santonio Holmes catch, the iconic game, of course. 2 Super Bowl appearances, lost his other appearance to the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, but also 3 AFC championship appearances in 17 years. You got 10 playoff appearances, all right, 9 double-digit win seasons, 9 of 16 to this point. Could be 10 for 17 if they win against the Ravens this weekend. And then also 17 straight non-losing seasons. That is more non-losing seasons in a row than any NFL head coach has been with their current team, which is 16 years, John Harbaugh, Baltimore Ravens. And then also the career win percentage, 62.2 over a 17-year stretch, is still the 6th highest among current NFL head coaches, and that includes guys that have only been head coaches for like a year, 2 years, 3 years. He is still competing with the top guys in the league in terms of career win percentage. And, you know, for being a coach as long as he has, that is extremely, extremely impressive. But that's not to say that there aren't legitimate criticisms about Mike Tomlin, which is why, you know, if you disagree with me and you think Mike Tomlin isn't the right guy and the Steelers need something fresh, I completely understand that because the Steelers don't have any playoff wins since 2016. You know, you can say all you want about regular season, but the argument is, you know, he doesn't really win when it counts. We'll be discussing that on today's show as well, but also no Super Bowl appearances since 2010. So throughout 2010 to 2020, that whole decade there, no Super Bowl appearances other than that Green Bay Super Bowl, which they lost, by the way. And then also they've only had one 10-win season over the last 6 seasons here in Pittsburgh. It's been a lot of 9-7, a lot of 8-8 here in Pittsburgh here over the last half decade. So on today's show, I'm going to be breaking down those quote-unquote mediocre years here in Pittsburgh under Mike Tomlin. And I'm going to tell you why they don't necessarily concern me or not necessarily make me want to get off of Mike Tomlin as the head coach of this team moving forward. But before I go over the last 6 years in detail and kind of my thoughts on those years, go ahead right now and get started on your New Year's resolutions with today's sponsor at Factor Meals. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery service takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores and the prep work and the cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered straight to your door with over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, Calorie Smart, vegan and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, so you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your New Year's resolutions. What's even better is that Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep you going no matter what's on your schedule. Factor was nice enough to send Coop and I some meals and some juices and some of the breakfast stuff as well. Absolutely fantastic stuff. I promise you, you are going to love the way Factor tastes, and you're really going to love the convenience as well. Head on over to factormeals.com/SteelersChat50 and use code SteelersChat50, one word, to get 50% off. Factor Meals today. That's code SteelersChat50 at factormeals.com/SteelersChat50 to get 50% off. So now let's start on this journey here of the last 6 seasons with 2018. And this is kind of the start of it all right before this season. It was the Killer Bee era, 4 straight 10-plus win seasons, going to the playoffs, having really good football teams led by Big Ben Roethlisberger, right? But you finished this year at 9-6-1 and missed the playoffs despite starting the year at 7-2-1. Now, you also have to remember Le'Veon Bell sat out the entire season holding out for that contract dispute. And then also this was really the year where Antonio Brown really started to lose his freaking marbles and ended up being traded to the Las Vegas Raiders after the season was over. Now, 2018, in my opinion, because it was such a bad collapse, and you still had a prime Big Ben Roethlisberger at this time, this is probably the biggest stain, at least in my opinion, on Mike Tomlin's career record in terms of a regular season, right? You missed the playoffs after such a good start. You weren't able to get Le'Veon Bell to sign a contract, an extension when he was really playing well. Antonio Brown was kind of losing it, so people were starting to say Mike Tomlin's losing the locker room, all this different stuff. 2018 is definitely a year that Mike Tomlin probably wishes he could get back. Then we get to 2019, and it's another season where the Steelers missed the playoffs, an 8-8 finish. But you have to remember that this season here, Big Ben Roethlisberger gets hurt very early in the season, and you're pretty much relying on a very young Mason Rudolph at that point and Duck Hodges. Yes, Duck Hodges as your starting quarterback for pretty much the entire season. And the fact that Tomlin got this team to an 8-8 record, I think is actually pretty impressive. All right, I think with most teams had a young Mason Rudolph who was not a very good quarterback at that time, and Duck Hodges who was definitely not a good quarterback at that time. Getting them to 8-8, I think that's a really good accomplishment from Mike Tomlin, and it shows that he's able to keep teams afloat even when all hell breaks loose in terms of losing star players. Then we get to 2020, and of course, this was the COVID year, and it was a very weird year in the National Football League. But the Pittsburgh Steelers did get back to double-digit win football here with a 12-4 record, but that's also a little bit misleading because this was another season where the Steelers completely collapsed in the latter half of the season. Big Ben played really well to start the season. The defense was absolutely elite, and because of that, the Steelers got off to a historic 11 straight wins to start this season, but they also lost the final 5 of 6 games. All right, that is a terrible stretch, including playoffs, where, of course, you get that famous photo of Big Ben Roethlisberger on the bench at Acrisure Stadium losing to the Cleveland Browns, right? And, of course, you lost to the Browns both in Week 18 and in the wild card round at Acrisure Stadium. Absolutely embarrassing for this franchise. Now, my thoughts here on 2020 is that when Big Ben Roethlisberger was actually playing really good football in the early part of the season, this team couldn't be stopped. Mike Tomlin had this team just rolling, winning every single football game, and you could definitely tell as the season went on, especially during that final home stretch, Big Ben's play definitely began to decline. Coming off that injury in 2019, I think that his age really started to show. And unfortunately, this was the beginning of the end for Big Ben Roethlisberger as an elite NFL quarterback. And unfortunately, that ended the season prematurely here for the 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers. Then you get to the 2021 season where, once again, they're back to 9-7-1. They did end up making the playoffs again this year with Big Ben as their quarterback. But once again, I think Ben's age continued to show itself. He had a harder time throwing the ball down the field here, especially here towards the end of the season. And, of course, it wasn't helpful that Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator here in Pittsburgh. I do think Tomlin still got Pittsburgh to the playoffs, despite poor offensive play calling and a declining quarterback. So this was really the beginning of an era here over these last 3 seasons where Tomlin's had to overcome bad offensive play calling via Matt Canada and poor quarterback play. And although Ben was pretty decent that year, especially to begin the season, by season's end, he was definitely not the same quarterback, and he was getting tired. He couldn't handle the 17-game schedule, and by the time they made it to the playoffs, what'd you expect from Mike Tomlin? To win the Super Bowl this year? Absolutely not. I think the fact that he got this team to the playoffs yet again is another good thing on Mike Tomlin's resume. And then perhaps one of his best coaching jobs was last year. People forget about this. In 2022, getting to 9-8 despite what they had to go through on offense. Drafting Kenny Pickett, who was a rookie last year, Mitch Trubisky not playing well, and of course you got the terrible offensive play calling of Matt Canada. One of the worst offenses in Pittsburgh Steelers history was last year, and despite a 3-7 start, despite getting absolutely destroyed by the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Everybody gave up hope on this team, and people were starting to clamor for Tomlin to get fired. He goes on to win 7 of the final 7 games of that season, and people went into the 2023 campaign with a lot of hope because of that stretch. The defense played fantastically down the stretch, and it was really the engine that almost got that team to the playoffs. They were the first team out of the AFC playoff picture, and definitely the hopes were high going into 2023. So I think that this was a great coaching job by Mike Tomlin. He had a terrible offensive structure, and he made it work anyway. That's kind of been the trademark of him, at least in my opinion, over these last 6 years, and that continued into this year. So right now, 9-7. Of course, we got this final game against the Baltimore Ravens in Week 18. If you win, they get back to double-digit win football, despite the fact that, once again, you had Matt Canada here as the offensive coordinator, despite the fact that Kenny Pickett didn't develop into the quarterback we were all hoping he was going to be, and he also had to make major changes this year, right? There was a bunch of injuries to his defense at the inside linebacker and safety position, overcame those, brought guys in to contribute right away. It was really, really good stuff. And right now, Pittsburgh, with these last 2 wins, are right on the precipice of making the playoffs with one of the worst offensive seasons in this franchise's history in terms of overall league rankings. So this is, I believe, what great coaches do. They're able to take a roster with the coaches that they have available and kind of get them to their ceiling. If they have the coaches and the roster to be a title contender, that's what happens, right? If they have the roster to potentially compete for a playoff spot, that's what happens, right? And my contention here is that Mike Tomlin is the type of guy that does that, right? Even despite losing quarterbacks, having bad quarterback play, despite, granted, he hired Matt Canada, but you know what? Matt Canada's offense was absolutely terrible, and he's still overcoming that. So my contention here is that if they get the right offensive coordinator, right? If Tomlin can just get it right this time, hire the right offensive coordinator, and get the right quarterback with the defensive structure that's here with the leadership abilities that Mike Tomlin has, I absolutely have all the confidence in the world that Mike Tomlin can be and will be a Super Bowl winning head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers pretty soon here. I absolutely do believe that, and as a Steelers fan, I really do believe in that contention. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Who would you like to see as the next offensive coordinator quarterback combo here in Pittsburgh in 2024? Do you want to see like an Eric Bieniemy, Mason Rudolph? Do you want to see something else? Let me know which offensive coordinator and which quarterback you want to pair with Mike Tomlin in 2024 to try to get the Steelers their next Super Bowl. Let me know down there in the comments what you guys think, and make sure you guys click that subscribe button. Thank you guys for sticking with me here, whether you agree with my take, whether you disagree with me. If you made it to the end of today's video, I appreciate everybody hearing me out today. And honestly, I don't really expect anyone to completely agree with me 100%, right? If you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. I love having this kind of dialogue with you guys here on the channel, so make sure you click that subscribe button for premium Steelers content 24/7, 365 for free right here on YouTube. All right, that's our third segment today.
All done.
All done. We got it going, man. We got to we got to 120 likes, so I will take a shot here. I will take a shot here. All right. Coop, you taking one too?
Yeah, screw it.
All right, man. It comes down to Week 18.
We'll be live Saturday. Join us.
What's that?
We'll be live Saturday.
We'll be live Saturday. We might be live Sunday night as well if it comes down to that Sunday night game. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. Let me know down there in the comments which offensive coordinator, which quarterback you want. It's going to be a fun offseason, but you know what? I'm not ready to go into the offseason.
I'm not ready yet.
I want another week. I want playoffs next week. That's what I want. And, I think that if Mike Tomlin can somehow get this team with the quarterback play, with firing a coordinator midseason, with changing quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks at that, going to your third string quarterback, making it work despite a bunch of injuries to your defense. I think this would be one of the best coaching jobs Mike Tomlin has ever had. And he's had a lot of really great coaching jobs, man. He's one of those guys that just elevates a roster. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. And I've tried to make my case today. Did I make a compelling case today?
Made a good case. Made a good case for sure.
All right, man. So I appreciate every single one of you guys. I'm going to take a shot real quick.
Y'all. We'll see y'all Saturday. Get ready. Wave your towels.
Get those towels ready for Saturday, baby. We got to get this dub. We got to make the playoffs. Because the playoffs aren't the same without the Pittsburgh Steelers in it, man.
No, they are not.
If you ask me. So let's get there. Let's have a great time this weekend. Until we see you guys next time.